by the original act. The more serious offenses against persons were covered in the Offenses Against the Persons Act in 1868. The Act has been amended several times as the nature of the problems faced in our society have changed. Today, we seek to amend to regulate the use of fireworks. Fireworks have become an expected component of most types of celebrations in Trinidad and Tobago. From public holidays such as Independence Day and Diwali, to significant dates such as Old Year's Night, to private weddings, birthday parties, sporting events, carnival fetes, one sees fireworks being discharged. The problem is that while they add to the spectacle for those celebrating, there are often serious and deleterious effects to persons in close proximity and surrounding areas. Mr. Speaker, the government is not against fireworks simpliciter, fireworks as a whole. But we can all agree that they can be a nuisance at times and that they can pose a threat to limb and life on occasion, and property. They can be harmful to the well-being of our families, especially those with health conditions, to our children, to our babies, and they pose serious threats, as I've said, to property and to animals. The fact is, fireworks are not toys. They are explosive devices capable of causing injury, distress, and damage to property. The Environmental Management Authority, the EMA, in its 2021 position paper on the management of fireworks in Trinidad and Tobago stated that, and I quote, "Fireworks are explosive devices that produce beautiful visual effects when ignited." This is the EMA speaking. Unfortunately, they also release destructive blast waves of compressed air, toxic chemicals, loud sounds, which harm the health of humans, animals, and the environment. What the government does today is to place some structure and order to what has been an entirely unregulated activity. As it stands now, anything goes. There are no requirements for permission, there are no requirements for proper handling, and there are no requirements which govern where and when fireworks can be discharged. The unchecked growth of the fireworks industry in Trinidad and Tobago has reached a dangerous point. What was once a source of celebration has over the years become a serious public safety concern. Over the years, we have read countless reports of injuries caused by fireworks. These are not isolated incidents. They are recurring tragedies that highlight the very real dangers of treating explosives as entertainment. Each report is a reminder that fireworks are not just harmless fun, but hazardous devices that demand control to protect citizens, animals, and property. This government has taken note of the situation and has brought this bill to address the issue. Mr. Speaker, I wish to refer to just some of the incidents which have been reported in our newspapers. In the Newsday of the 27th February 2003, it was reported that several patrons had suffered serious injuries at a concert in Chagaramas, which many of us still remember, when a burst of fireworks, instead of shooting into the sky, arced into the crowd, setting fire to a number of persons, injuring them, and I believe it was a Machel Montano concert. It was a tragedy. No one died, but a number of persons were seriously injured. The Trinidad Express reports that on the 11th of November 2015, a 56-year-old man lost several fingers on his left hand when fireworks that he was setting off exploded on Diwali night. So you have burns in one case, lost fingers in the other. On the 17th of November 2017, a grandmother was injured when an unidentified man threw a lighted scratch bomb inside of her son's car. It blew up in her hand, severing pieces of her fingers. Again, injury to the person. And then there was a fatality recorded in East Port of Spain on the 1st of January 2017. Now, in January of 2023, at least 3 businesses on the corner of Nelson and Duke Street in Port of Spain were set on fire earlier Saturday morning due to the misuse of fireworks. That was described as a fireworks war. And most recently, and this report was truly heartbreaking, in the Saturday Express of the 25th October 2025, a mere 6 weeks ago or so, it was reported that a newborn baby had passed away. Her parents believe that the child's death was triggered by the fireworks. I'm not a coroner. I make no conclusion on this. I'm reading from open source information. Vulnerable citizens, including the elderly, children, and those with medical conditions, suffer from the excessive noise and disruption. Animals, too, are affected. Homes and businesses are at risk of catching fire if fireworks land on them. Beyond these immediate damages, there are other possible risks which fireworks pose. They pose a grave national security risk. Their explosive components can be repurposed to construct improvised bombs, while their deafening blasts often mimic gunfire so closely that they may mask the illegal use of firearms. And there have been a number of occasions in which this has occurred. The evidence is clear, Mr. Speaker. Without regulation, fireworks jeopardize not only our celebrations, but our collective security and well-being. The risk, nuisance, and threat to public safety associated with them provide sufficient reasons now for the use of fireworks to be controlled. The government promised in the lead up to the election and has since then demonstrated by action that we intend to deal with the rampant lawlessness that has occurred in our society. We made it clear that we seek to restore order to Trinidad and Tobago. And lawlessness does not just refer to criminal activity, violent or white-collar crime. It speaks also, quite literally, to a lack of laws and regulation to treat with various aspects of social and economic activity. Failures of the state which allow people to act outside of the law and to exploit gaps in regulation. This government has a zero-tolerance approach to disorder, and we are determined to ensure that we safeguard all of our citizens and that we tend to the well-being and health of all of our society as a whole. We intend to do this by bringing timely and relevant legislation to the Parliament, by empowering and resourcing law enforcement, by strengthening the judiciary, and by protecting victims of crime. We have been working assiduously to create the appropriate regulatory frameworks for various sectors, which have been allowed to grow and develop unchecked with no oversight over the past decade. In so doing, we draw clear boundaries between what is legally permissible, what are beneficial activities, and on the other hand, what are illegal, prosecutable offenses. We are closing doorways for exploitation and harm to others, particularly the most vulnerable, while creating a foundation for growth and for peace and our overall well-being. The government believes that this is a critical and timely piece of legislation that strikes the correct balance between the rights of the individual and the overall good of the society. Mr. Speaker, the Law Reform Commission, pursuant to its statutory mandate, undertook a review of the laws governing fireworks in response to mounting public outcry some 5 years ago. In 2020, they produced a policy paper entitled Fireworks, a Review of the Law. The policy that they sought to convince my friends on the other side to pursue included the following. One, it asked them to explore the scope of the current legislative framework governing the industry and the role of enforcement authorities. Two, to examine the major issues surrounding the recent growth in the industry, including the increasing availability and use of fireworks. Three, to examine fireworks regulations and enforcement measures in other jurisdictions, such as England, Canada, Australia, and the Federated States, New South Wales, Queensland, and South Australia, and in New Zealand. Mr. Speaker, arising out of the Commission's work, three principal concerns with respect to the use of fireworks were identified. The first was risk and danger to life and property. The second was high noise levels causing this disturbance. The third was misuse and deliberate use of fireworks for criminal purposes. The Commission subsequently furnished recommendations in relation to the use of fireworks, which could be achieved in the short term, and prepared a bill entitled the Summary Offences Amendment Bill of 2021. That's 4 years ago. What did they do?
Nothing.
Nothing.
As usual. Nothing.
Arima, you were not there. I do not blame you. In January of 2022, the Commission advanced the 2021 bill by the conduct of public consultation. They went out for public consultation. They sought written views of the public, and that was not a symbolic gesture. It was a deliberate effort to ensure that the voices of citizens and institutions were heard. Key stakeholders, such as state authorities, NGOs, members of the public, were all invited to submit written comments. The process yielded invaluable insights, reflecting widespread concern and offering practical recommendations. What did they do?
Nothing. Nothing.
The usual, nothing. The Commission, recognizing that reform was imperative and that the law should be modernized, made certain recommendations to us. They're as follows. One, they suggested that we regulate the use of fireworks by introducing a new permit requirement. Two, they suggested that we prescribe the times on public holidays and on December the 31st for the use of fireworks without a permit. Three, they suggested that we restrict fireworks from being discharged within a half-mile radius from specified places such as hospitals, homes for the elderly. The Cabinet felt airports were important, registered animal shelters were important, and the Commission had already suggested that we protect the zoo. They also suggested that we make fireworks offenses ticketed offenses through the issuing by the police of fixed penalty notices. They suggested that we restrict the use of fireworks to persons 18 years old and over. And finally, they suggested that we provide that a video recording captured on a mobile phone, tablet, iPad, or other similar electronic or smart device shall be admissible as evidence. In order to give effect to these recommendations, the government has moved with haste, given the time of the year, to bring this bill which has been languishing for 5 years, to the House this afternoon. I should like to turn to the bill itself. By introducing a permit requirement, the bill ensures that fireworks are no longer freely accessible without oversight. Permit holders must notify the fire service before use, and that creates some accountability and transparency. Clear exceptions are outlined alongside restrictions and fixed penalties for breaches, ensuring that enforcement is practical and effective. The bill empowers the Minister of Homeland Security to craft regulations to give full effect to these provisions, while also modernizing enforcement by allowing recordings from cell phones, smart devices, to be admissible as evidence. With 6 clauses requiring only a simple majority vote, the legislation is both measured and achievable. And if I could just take the House through the main provisions in the bill. Clause 1, of course, is the short title. Clause 2 seeks to provide that the Act shall come into operation on such date as is fixed by the President by proclamation. that allows us to deal with the immediate problems, well, not problems, but the immediate celebrations before we go to the other provisions in the legislation. Clause 3 seeks to provide for the interpretation of the amending law. Clause 4 contains a definition of fireworks and of toy fireworks. Some of these definitions do not create new legal concepts. Rather, they draw directly from established provisions in existing law, but by incorporating terms already recognized under other law, the bill ensures consistency, avoids ambiguity, and strengthens the overall framework for regulating fireworks. Mr. Speaker, I should like to emphasize that within the definition of fireworks, we have deliberately recognized and included the category of noise-reducing fireworks. This inclusion is not incidental. It is a conscious effort to mitigate the harmful effects that traditional fireworks inflict on both people and animals. And it may be that we return to that at another time. Clause 5 of the bill seeks to amend the Summary Offences Act by repealing sections 99 to 101 of the Act and substituting new sections 99 to 101(1). Mr. Speaker, in many other jurisdictions, the supply and sale of fireworks are governed by rigorous and highly detailed regulations. We in this country must now ask ourselves, why should our standards be any less stringent when the dangers we face are just as real? In addition to requiring authorization to sell fireworks, the regulations in most jurisdictions restrict the types of fireworks which can be sold to the general public, impose age requirements on the sale and purchase of fireworks, specify permitted periods during which fireworks can be sold or displayed for sale, and impose requirements on fireworks sellers. What we propose in section 99 is simply to provide that a person shall not discharge fireworks unless he holds a permit issued by the Commissioner of Police. The proposed section 100 then provides for the general provisions for permits to be granted to use fireworks. These provisions would include, inter alia, the type and amount of fireworks, the location, date, and time of use. In most jurisdictions, the purchase, acquisition, and possession of certain types of fireworks are strictly prohibited. These restrictions are not arbitrary. Ours are carefully designed to promote consumer safety and to protect the wider public. By ensuring that fireworks are entrusted only to responsible individuals capable of handling them safely, over 18, these laws reduce the risk of accidents, safeguard communities, and uphold the principle that celebration must not come at the expense of security or well-being. Mr. Speaker, the proposed section 101 introduces a safeguard. Persons who now wish to discharge or use fireworks would be required to notify the fire service of any intended use of fireworks. So once you apply to the Commissioner of Police and you obtain a permit for the discharge of fireworks, you must then notify the fire service of the intended use of the fireworks. The provision is not a mere formality. It is a vital measure to ensure preparedness to protect lives, and to minimize risk. By mandating prior notification, we seek to empower the fire service to anticipate potential hazards, respond more effectively, and to uphold public service. The proposed Section 101A establishes vital restrictions on the use of fireworks. It addresses the discharge of fireworks on land and ensures that such activity does not create danger or nuisance to others. Equally important, it mandates the supervision of children when discharging toy fireworks. The proposed Section 101B introduces essential restrictions on the use of fireworks in close proximity to sensitive areas such as hospitals, national parks, registered animal shelters, and the zoo. These measures are necessary protections designed to end the unregulated, irresponsible, and inconsiderate use of fireworks that has caused harm for far too long. Mr. Speaker, the proposed Section 101C recognizes and balances the cultural significance of fireworks by allowing their discharge without a permit on specified days, namely public holidays and New Year's Eve. That being said, there are specific windows of time in which fireworks can be discharged on these days. For public holidays between 8 and 9, on the 31st of December from 11:30 to 12:30, the next day. The provision strikes a careful balance as it preserves the tradition of national celebration within clear parameters. In this way, the law respects our heritage of festivity, yet maintains the safeguards necessary to protect citizens, animals, and property from irresponsible or unsafe use. The proposed sections 101D to 101H provide for a fixed penalty notice to be issued where an offense is committed under the proposed sections 99 to 101C. These proposed sections also provide the following: A, payment of the fixed penalty notice; B, filing a notice to contest the fixed penalty notice to the Criminal and Traffic Court; C, proceedings to be instituted where the fixed penalty notice is not paid; D, the interpretation of certain terms used in sections 99 to 101G. Mr. Speaker, one of the most critical aspects of regulating fireworks is ensuring that the provisions governing their use are properly enforced. Legislation without enforcement is ineffective, and enforcement must be both practical and robust. As in Trinidad and Tobago, police in other jurisdictions bear the responsibility of prosecuting individuals who use fireworks contrary to law. The proposed section 101L is another important provision of the legislation. It empowers the minister to make regulations that give full effect to sections 99 through 101(7). This authority is not simply procedural, it is in fact essential to ensure that the framework we establish can be properly enforced. Regulations are the mechanism by which administrative and regulatory procedures will be put in place, allowing the law to move beyond principle into practice. Without them, enforcement would remain fragmented and ineffective. Finally, Mr. Speaker, Clause 6 of the bill introduces a consequential amendment to the Evidence Act to provide that video recordings captured by new technology, mobile phones, tablets, iPads, other similar electronic devices shall be admissible as evidence. This is a practical and forward-looking measure, recognizing the reality that in today's world, the most immediate and reliable evidence often comes from everyday technology in the hands of ordinary citizens. By modernizing the law in this way, we make enforcement, evidence gathering, and prosecutions less complicated and more effective. The amendment strengthens accountability, ensures that breaches of the law can be more easily proven, and empowers both authorities and the public to play a role in safeguarding our communities. It is a simple yet powerful step toward ensuring that justice keeps pace with technology and promotes respect for the rule of law. Mr. Speaker, in view of the fact that this or similar legislation has gone to a joint select committee before, under the tenure of my friends opposite, in view of the fact that the public consultations were held during their tenure, in view of the fact that they drafted legislation to bring about precisely this, I expect their full, unconditional support this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, I thank you and I beg to move.
Before I put the question for debate, honourable members, I propose to revert to an item which we defer to later in the proceedings. Clerk.
Minister's questions.
Member for Port of Spain, North St. Anne's West.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, question number 1 to the Prime Minister, the member for Siparia. Would the Prime Minister advise how many written commercial offers for gas supply, which include volumes of gas to be supplied, price of the gas, and length of contract beyond 2025 and for longer than 6 months have been sent by NGC to the petrochemical producers to date, and for which companies?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. With due respect to the member for Port of Spain South, Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, I know the Minister would have been Minister of Energy for many, many moons in his last reincarnation, and therefore I'm very surprised, or maybe I should not be surprised, that the Minister would ask a question like this. The Minister knows that these commercial contracts are all tied up, these contracts, with confidentiality agreements. Confidential agreements. Mr. Speaker, I've been reminded that would be Law 101, first year law, that the Minister should well know, having served in that ministry. So, the details of the gas contracts, negotiations, both on the Speaker, you gave a brilliant ruling. It was well reasoned. So let's not have that again, please. The banter and the crosstalk from let Port of Spain North control himself, please, sir.
Member for Ruka Lopino.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. To the Prime Minister.
Oh. What the question? I beg your pardon, Honourable Prime Minister.
So Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West well knows that these contract negotiations, both on the upstream and the downstream, and the terms being negotiated, are the subject of strict obligations of confidentiality between the parties. If the member is not aware of these obligations, clearly it represents the reckless manner in which such negotiations were undertaken by himself and the past administration. My government respects our obligations to our downstreamers and upstreamers. We have no intention of breaching contractual obligations. And when these negotiations are completed, public statements will be made by all parties. I thank you, sir.
We will revert to supplementals when the Standing Order Committee does its work. And for the avoidance of doubt, I want all the members to know that I have the Hansard for the actual deliberations of the committee when Standing Order 26 was granted. And as I said, I'm more fortified in my view. But I don't want to get in. That's an old debate. Let's move on. Aruka Lopino.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. To the Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister state the reason or reasons for the former CEO of WASA being sent on administrative leave?
Honourable Prime Minister.
Honourable Speaker, Honourable Member and members, the last acting CEO of WASA was never sent on administrative leave. So the premise of this question is a false premise. Therefore, the question does not arise. That person tendered his resignation, citing personal reasons. So it's a false premise that the question is based.
Mr. Speaker, to the Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister provide the name of the person who was appointed Acting Chief Executive Officer of the Water and Sewage Authority?
The Prime Minister.
Thank you, sir. The person who is appointed to act as CEO of WASA is a person who is or was or still is an employee of WASA, and his name is Mr. Dane Maraj. Thank you.
Okay. That concludes the question. I now propose, honourable members, to put the question for debate. Honourable members, the question is that a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Summary Offences Act, Chapter 1102, and for other related matters be now read a second time. Member for Diego Martin Central.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for recognizing me and allowing me to contribute to the debate of the Summary Offences Amendment Bill 2025 before us today. Mr. Speaker, before we start, I think it is important that we acknowledge the fact that with the greatest of intentions, this matter is extremely polarizing in today's society. And no matter what is decided here today, there will be persons who say that anything that is done to limit the use of fireworks will be seen as overreach by the government and an authoritarian approach. Yeah, it was a little rough there, member. Approach by the government. And there will be people who say that unless the government implements an outright ban, that they have done nothing to appease the issue. Mr. Speaker, it is against the backdrop of that polarizing nature of this topic that the government that I was a part of engaged in a lot of work that looked at both the drafting of legislation, the creation of policy, the acceptance of policy papers created by the Law Reform Commission, going out to public consultation alongside members, hearing the opinions of those members of the public and stakeholders in the industry. And that work, Mr. Speaker, is the work that today the government in this bill stands on. So, Mr. Speaker, any building, no matter how grand or how simple, requires a foundation. That foundation was built and laid by the People's National Movement. And in coming here today, the UNC government is coming with the final brick. But that final brick, Mr. Speaker, speaks to this aspect of fireworks as a general industry and the way in which fireworks is utilized and role that it plays in our society. Mr. Speaker, the Law Reform Commission's paper, as identified by the Attorney General in his piloting, was an extensive paper. It not only spoke about the use of fireworks, but spoke about every aspect, not only of the industry, but of the life cycle of fireworks in general. And it is our hope on this side, even as we do say that we are minded to support this bill, that we do support the intent of this bill. We hope that this bill is a part of a suite of legislation that does introduce regulations across the industry to ensure that best practice and world standards apply to the industry beyond simply the use of fireworks in general. So, Mr. Speaker, yes, we are minded to support the bill, but we also intend, as an opposition,
All right, the noise in the...
The speaker talking to you.
Well, I'm also speaking to you as well. So let's take it down a notch. I don't think there's anything controversial here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, even as we are minded to support this bill and its intent, we also acknowledge the role and responsibility of the opposition in this Parliament, and to do our part to improve it, to strengthen it, and to legislate with responsibility, or to acknowledge our part in legislation with responsibility and respect for the people who must live with the consequences of this legislation, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the PNM, having long recognized the need for regulation in the fireworks industry, and understanding that this bill did not start